Welcome back to the channel Silent Ruptor. Let's continue the Necromancer of Shadows. Consider subscribing to the channel and also don't forget to leave a like and a comment to the video. Without wasting any time, let's continue. Mom, is it ready? Elora asked while licking her lips as she looked at the fruit pudding Anastasia was making. Just wait for 5 minutes and it will be ready, Anastasia said while patting Elora's head. Elora didn't shift her eyes from the pudding and just nodded her head. Evan was sitting on the sofa, looking at both of them with dead eyes. I wonder what kind of reaction she will show if she finds out Elora is treating her as the replacement for her previous cook, Biscuit, he thought while rubbing his eyebrows and reflecting on the events of the past few days. It's been 10 days since Elora woke up and Evan tried to mess with Anastasia. To stop the shadow dragon from doing something stupid, Evan clearly explained everything about Elora. After finding out Elora was a weapon spirit, Anastasia was quite surprised, but when she recalled the strange feeling of destruction she felt when she first met her, she knew Evan wasn't lying. After resolving the misunderstanding, when Anastasia found out Elora was a foodie, she asked her to call her Mom, and in return, she would give her tasty food. Hearing she could get tasty food just by calling her Mom, Elora didn't hesitate and immediately started to call her Mom. Well, as long as both of them are happy, Evan thought and shrugged his shoulders, not caring too much about what they call each other. He took out his communication crystal from his storage ring and looked at the information he received a few hours ago. The Gehenna Empire and Dragon Islands have already started to move, and minor conflicts are happening between both parties every day, but there is no major event, and only people below rank 2 are engaging in conflict. Evan thought while rubbing his chin. From the looks of it, it seems they are trying to delay the war so that they can properly investigate the situation of Eldracar and Baphomet. He said inwardly, and his eyes narrowed because this was not a good thing for him. He was sure that Baphomet and Eldracar would come out of the tomb one day, and he wanted to ensure that the Gehenna Empire and Dragon Islands started a big war before that so that even if both of them returned, it wouldn't be easy for them to stop the war. Currently, most people think that he is somehow related to the Shadow Monarch, but Eldracar and Baphomet know that he is not related to him but as the Shadow Monarch himself. Once they come out, it would be impossible to hide his true identity from the other factions. But if the war between the Dragon Islands and the Gehenna Empire escalated to the point of no return, Eldracar and Baphomet would have to first solve the situation of the war after coming out before doing anything about him. I just need some time to grow properly, and once I am strong enough. Evan said inwardly and stopped looking at the information on the communication crystal. His gaze shifted towards Anastasia and thinking about what they would be doing in a few days, his lips slightly arched upwards. Although what they were planning to do was quite risky and could be said to be complete madness, he couldn't help but feel excited. If everything goes according to plan, the Blood Moon Empire will also get involved in this mess, and once that happens. Evan shook his head and tried to stay calm. Soon Elora ran towards him while holding her fruit pudding and sat down beside him. Father, do you want some? She asked while scooping a spoonful of pudding and extending it towards his mouth. Sure, Evan said, and as he took a bite, the sweet flavor of fruits exploded in his mouth. It's good, he said and once again sighed, marveling at how a dragon had become such a good cook. Really? Hearing Evan, Elora also took a bite and her eyes immediately lit up. Anastasia walked out of the kitchen and, seeing Elora eating, she sighed because this little girl was really a glutton and she had to cook 5 or 6 times a day. I wonder what kind of person she was before he turned her into a weapon spirit, Anastasia thought with a strange look on her face, thinking about the amount of food that Elora had eaten in the past 10 days. Even a normal rank 4 core evolver can't match this girl in digesting high-level food. As Anastasia came back and sat down beside Evan, Evan's communication crystal rang. As he accepted the call, Sylvan's excited voice came from the other end. The core world pill is ready, he simply said and ended the call. Evan raised an eyebrow when Sylvan ended the call so quickly and shook his head. It seems he is really excited to recover his rank, he said and stood up. Seeing Evan was planning to leave, Elora finished the pudding in one bite and turned into a black golden streak of light, disappearing inside his body. Evan didn't say anything when Elora entered his soul space and looked at Anastasia. Anastasia grabbed Evan's hand, and the next second, the surroundings around them blurred. In an instant, They arrived right outside Sylvan's cave. Evan felt a little dizzy because Anastasia didn't use teleportation or any other skill. She simply moved using her high agility, which is why he couldn't adapt to the change in location immediately. Once Evan recovered, both of them entered the cave, and when they reached the end, they saw Ashley, Alaric, Octavius, and Sylvan already there. Ashley had created a space barrier in one of the corners of the cave, extending its space, and Sylvan was sitting in the middle of it, holding a pure white pill. He can't wait to heal his core, huh? Anastasia said with a chuckle when she saw that Sylvan was already ready to take the core world pill. Alaric and Ashley nodded when they heard Anastasia and Octavius come back to stand beside Evan. So you really succeeded in refining it, Evan said to Octavius, who didn't say anything and just lifted his chin in a proud manner. Evan shook his head when he saw this and shifted his gaze towards Sylvan, who finally couldn't hold back anymore and popped the pill into his mouth. The moment Sylvan popped the pill in his mouth, it transformed into a stream of energy that flowed towards his core. Sylvan's core, which was located beside his heart, looked like a small shining marble filled with stars. There were numerous small cracks on the shining core, causing its world essence to continuously leak out. As the energy from the pill entered his core, the cracks slowly began to heal. The small stars inside the core shone brightly, and Sylvan's aura, which was at the peak of rank 5, started to increase. New stars began to appear inside the core, and some of the dead stars started to shine again, making Sylvan's core look like a small universe. By the way, did you use the entire world core plant, or is it still usable? Evan suddenly asked Octavius. Normally, the world core plant would have withered after I extracted its essence to create the pill, but with the help of the world tree, we can save it and it should be able to recover its essence in a few years, Octavius said without looking at Evan. I have already planted the world core plant near the world tree, and under the aura of the world tree, it is indeed recovering its essence at a very fast speed, Ashley added when she heard Evan and Octavius' conversation. She was also surprised when Octavius told her to plant the world core plant near the world tree, as she thought the world core plant could only be used once. This world core plant will be quite useful, as no one knows what will happen in the future. Ashley thought and smiled slightly, looking at Sylvan, whose aura was slowly increasing, indicating that the damage to his core was healing rapidly. Suddenly, she thought about something and looked at Anastasia, Alaric, and Evan, who were standing to the side. I forgot to ask, but, are we really going to do that? In order to proceed with Anastasia's plan, they needed Ashley's space abilities, so they involved her in the madness as well. Evan still remembered Ashley's shocked look when Sylvan told her about what they were going to do. What are you afraid of? Even if the plan fails, no one would suspect us, Anastasia gave Ashley a side glance and said in a plain voice. Indeed, with this woman's concealment ability and my spiritual illusion, it would be impossible for anyone to find out about us, Alaric nodded in agreement. Usually, he wasn't someone who liked to take risks, but the things Anastasia told him were too tempting. Besides, it had been hundreds of years since he did something interesting, so he felt it shouldn't be wrong to cause chaos once in a while. Ashley looked at Anastasia, Alaric, and Evan with dead eyes, feeling like giving them the nickname of the Mad Trio. Evan was taken aback when he saw Ashley looking at him and the others as if they were a bunch of people with mental problems, and his mouth twitched. Woman, just like you, I also got involved in this matter without my consent, so don't look at me like you're looking at a lunatic, Evan said in a dry voice. Anastasia and Alaric ignored what Evan said and looked at Ashley. Have you prepared the things you will need to perform your part? Alaric asked Ashley. Ashley sighed and nodded her head upon hearing Alaric. Although she felt what they were going to do was complete madness, she still took it seriously and was ready. When are we going to leave? Alaric didn't answer Ashley's question. Instead, he looked at Anastasia, who was standing beside him. Let's leave once this guy recovers. Leopold has already prepared everything and our target will arrive soon, Anastasia said in a calm voice, thinking about the information she had received yesterday. So soon? Ashley was surprised when she heard they would be leaving once Sylvan recovered, as she thought they would at least wait for a few months before taking action. Since we are going to do this, there is no point in delaying it. The sooner we finish everything, the better, Anastasia said with a shake of her head, and Alaric nodded his head as he completely agreed with her words. Ashley just sighed when she heard Anastasia and didn't say anything else. All of them waited for Sylvan to recover, and around 5 hours later, violent energy fluctuations suddenly erupted from Sylvan's body. Alaric frowned when he saw this, and with a wave of his hand, he created a shield in front of all of them that stopped the violent energy fluctuations that escaped from Ashley's space barrier. The ground around Sylvan started to break and some cracks appeared on the space barrier, forcing Ashley to reinforce it. "Is he all right?" Evan asked when he felt Sylvan's out-of-control aura. "Don't worry, he is just having a hard time controlling his powers, but he should be fine after some time," Anastasia said in a calm voice, as she felt Sylvan's aura had already reached rank 6 and was moving towards the peak of beginner level rank 6. The violent energy fluctuations coming out of Sylvan's body lasted for another hour, and after an hour, his aura finally started to stabilize. He reached the peak of beginner level rank 6, Alaric muttered with a small smile on his face, happy that after thousands of years, his friend had finally recovered. "Maybe I should ask him to treat me to some expensive wines," Alaric thought, his eyes flashing with a strange light. Soon, Sylvan completely controlled his aura and opened his eyes. Seeing this, Alaric and Ashley dispelled their barriers. Sylvan stood and looked towards Evan and the others, his eyes flashing with joy as he waited for them to congratulate him. But to his dismay, Alaric and the others just nodded their heads and turned around to leave. "Since you are fully healed, let's go. It will take us a few days to reach our destination after leaving the closed world of Dryads." Anastasia's voice reached Sylvan's ears, who stood there frozen, still not believing no one congratulated him for his triumphant return to rank 6. It seems that thing attracted many people. Ashley, who had changed her appearance and now looked like a woman in her 30s with red hair, spoke in a surprised voice. "I thought there wouldn't be many people coming because of the current situation in the Gehenna Empire, but it looks like people don't really care since the Dragon Islands and Gehenna Empire haven't made any big moves." Sylvan, who had also changed his appearance and now looked like a man in his 50s, said while looking around at the crowd moving on the street. It had been 10 days since Sylvan recovered from his injuries and they left the closed world of Drades. Using the teleportation building that Ashley built in the closed world of Drades, all 5 of them arrived on the outskirts of the Gehenna Empire. There were many kingdoms under the control of the Gehenna Empire, all inhabited by demons. Currently, Evan and the others were in a kingdom named Magmara. This kingdom was created by the strongest lava demon, Valtair, who, after escaping from slavery and defeating most of the demons, established it. Lava demons used to be the slaves of other demons because of their low population. They were strong physically and their firepower was very high, but because there were not many of them, they were enslaved by other demons. But things changed after Valtair's appearance, who defeated most of the demons who enslaved the lava demons and created this place. The Gehenna Empire came into existence after the appearance of Baphomet, who united all the demon species under one banner. Before Baphomet, the current Gehenna Empire was like a tribal place, with each area ruled by a different demon species. Some places were ruled by fire demons, some by extreme demons, some by blood demons, and many more. "I wonder what that stupid guy will think after seeing the current situation of Magmara," Anastasia spoke while looking around her surroundings. Similar to Ashley, Anastasia had also changed her appearance. Her hair was still black, but her previously beautiful face now looked like that of an ordinary woman in her late 20s. "Who are you talking about?" Evan asked in a curious voice when he heard Anastasia. "Valtair. He was the lava demon who created this kingdom," Anastasia replied with a shake of her head. Only after coming to Magmara did she find out that all the lava demons had already gone extinct and there was not a single one left. Valtair. Evan frowned when he heard this name because it sounded familiar. Anastasia noticed Evan's frown but did not explain anything about Valtair to him. "Maybe I have met this guy Valtair before," Evan thought and shrugged, thinking he might have met him when he was Azeroth. Similar to the others, Evan had also changed his appearance. But unlike the others, he changed his appearance to that of an elf. His shoulder-length black hair and eyes were still the same, but his current face was more elegant and refined, giving him a gentle vibe unlike his original appearance, which gave him a demonic charm. He was wearing a star-shaped earring in his left ear. Although the earring looked normal, it was anything but normal. Evan touched the earring and a window showing its details appeared in front of him. Abyssal Shroud, mid-level rank 4, an earring made from the scale of the progenitor of the Shadow Dragons and infused with its blood essence. The Abyssal Shroud has the following effects. 1. Because of the effect of the Shadow Dragon's aura, this earring can hide your presence from everything and no one will be able to find you. 2. Increase the power of all Shadow type skills by 300%. Shadow skills related to concealment will receive an additional boost of 200%. 3. The earring has a passive skill, Dragon Guard. Dragon Guard passive skill creates a shadow barrier around the wearer in case of danger. The shadow barrier created by Abyssal Shroud can stop a full power attack of a peak rank 5 core evolver. If I don't count the Halberd of Destruction, this is the highest grade artifact I have seen. Evan thought inwardly and looked at Anastasia, who was walking beside him. Before leaving the closed world of Drades, she gave him the Abyssal Shroud and asked him to always wear it to avoid detection by people looking for him. According to her, although rare, there are still some artifacts that people can use to search for his location just by describing his original appearance. It would be fine as long as he stayed inside the closed world of Drades since it's a completely different dimension, but once he left, it wouldn't be impossible for people to discover his location. But the first effect of the Abyssal Shroud can hide his presence from everything. Whether it is a skill or an artifact, he wouldn't get discovered by anything as long as he wore the earring. At this point, I suddenly feel like I got a sugar mommy out of nowhere. Evan thought with a twitching mouth but was genuinely grateful that Anastasia gave him the Abyssal Shroud. The first effect was already life-saving for him, but the other two effects were also something that could make anyone drool with excitement. Sylvan and the others walked on the street of Magmara and soon arrived in front of a restaurant. "Is that foxy guy here?" Sylvan asked as he looked at the luxurious restaurant in front of them. "He did say that he would be waiting for us here," Anastasia said as she walked forward. "Let's go inside. Even if he is not here, it won't take him long to arrive." Evan and the others followed her and entered the restaurant. The restaurant was quite big, but it didn't take long for Anastasia to see a familiar face sitting at one of the tables. "Seems like he got the thing we need," she said in a low voice, and all of them walked towards the table where the man was sitting. "Did you get the invitations?" Anastasia asked as she created a barrier around them to prevent being overheard. She then sat down on a chair, followed by Evan and the others. Alaric, who had changed his appearance to look like a beastkin with sharp facial features and a little wolf fur around his face, took a sip of the tea he had ordered earlier and nodded. "When the owner of the auction house is your slave, do you think it would be difficult for us to get the invitations?" he replied while looking at Anastasia with a smile. "What kind of curse did you put on him that made him your slave, and he doesn't even know he is under your control?" Evan asked curiously as he pressed a button on the table, causing a holographic screen displaying the restaurant menu to appear in front of him. Anastasia looked at the menu without much interest and ordered a steak before explaining. "I used Gloom Puppet Curse on him. When someone gets marked by this curse, they won't feel anything, but I can give them some commands. Whenever something related to those commands happens, the curse will trigger," she said and continued. "For example, after marking Leopold with the curse, I commanded him to inform me if anything important happened in the Bloodmoon Empire or other major factions. Whenever the curse triggers, Leopold will subconsciously follow the command I gave him without even realizing it." She paused after saying this and a cold smile appeared on her face. "Of course, there are other effects as well, like I can turn him into a real puppet without free will, moving solely based on the commands I give him. But I am too lazy to control him 24/7. So I just gave him some simple commands and let him move on his own." Evan wasn't surprised when he heard Anastasia's words and just nodded. He ordered a bunch of dishes using the holographic screen and waited for his order to arrive. Although Evan didn't care much about the curse Anastasia mentioned, Sylvan and Ashley were quite shocked to learn she could turn Leopold into her puppet anytime she wanted. Although Leopold wasn't very strong despite being a rank 5 core evolver, his connections and information network in Utopia were invaluable since he was the owner of one of the biggest auction houses in Utopia. She came out of the Shadow Realm just a few months ago, and she already turned one of the most influential people in Utopia into her slave. Evan thought inwardly and nodded. As expected from a dragon who has been alive for who knows how many years. As they were talking, the dishes they ordered arrived. Ashley, Sylvan, and Alaric were surprised to see that Evan had practically ordered almost half of the restaurant's menu. Once the waiter left after placing the dishes, Everyone, except Anastasia, looked at him with a weird expression, wondering if he had been starving for years. Evan didn't care about Sylvan and others' expressions, and in the next second, a black golden light flashed and all the dishes he had ordered disappeared. What the? Alaric and the others were stunned when they saw the black golden light because they felt a powerful destructive energy from it. They all looked at Evan with questioning eyes, wanting to know what that destructive light was. Evan shrugged his shoulders when he saw their questioning looks and said in a calm voice, "A skill that allows me to eat all the food in an instant. It's a very good skill to save time." Anastasia, eating the steak she had ordered, shook her head with a speechless look on her face, thinking the appetite of her recently found daughter was the same as ever. "If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. There's no need to spout bullshit in broad daylight," Alaric said while rolling his eyes when he heard Evan. "As if I would believe such destructive energy was related to a skill that helps you eat your food in an instant." Evan didn't say anything when he heard Alaric's sarcastic remark and just leaned back in his chair. Soon Anastasia finished her steak and ordered a cake for herself. Evan looked at her from the corner of his eye and thought mother and daughter were indeed the same. "Do you think he wants that thing to revive his son?" Ashley asked while placing her hands on the table and resting her chin on them. "Most likely. Some skills of vampires make them even worse than cockroaches. They can come back to life with just a drop of blood, so I think he needs that item to provide enough life force to revive his son," Sylvan said thoughtfully. Hearing Sylvan, Ashley looked at Evan with an expressionless face. Seeing the way Ashley was looking at him, Evan raised an eyebrow in confusion. "What?" Ashley's mouth twitched when she heard him and she said in a speechless voice, "What do you mean by, what? Don't you know everything is happening because of you? It was you who killed that guy's son in the tomb of the ancient." "Is that so?" Evan shrugged his shoulders when he heard Ashley and replied with a smirk on his face. "I killed many people in the tomb, so I don't remember clearly if I killed the son of a vampire duke while I was there. I don't think it's something you should be proud of," Ashley said while rubbing her eyebrows when she saw Evan smirk. Soon, the cake Anastasia ordered arrived. After finishing it, she stood up and grabbed Evan's hand. "We still have 5 days before the event starts. I have to visit a place, so I'll see you guys later," she said, and before Alaric or anyone else could say anything, she disappeared along with Evan. Sylvan and Alaric blinked a few times when Anastasia and Evan disappeared. But suddenly, something clicked in their minds and their mouth hung open. Did both of them dine and dash? "Where are we going?" Evan asked as he walked with Anastasia. "You wanted to create an armor, right?" Anastasia said, glancing at him from the corner of her eye. "We are going to see one of the best blacksmiths in Utopia." "A blacksmith?" Evan raised an eyebrow in surprise when he heard her. A few days ago, he had asked her if she knew someone who could create armor for him using the scales of the mid-level rank 6 dragon he found in the tomb of the ancient. At that time, she said she did know a blacksmith, but they couldn't meet him for the time being as he was somewhere far away. "Are we going to see the blacksmith you told me about in the closed world of Drades?" he asked with a curious look on his face, thinking they would be meeting the blacksmith she had spoken of, but to his surprise, Anastasia shook her head. "Not him, but someone who was taught by him," Anastasia said and sighed as she remembered the information that her essence clone sent to her when they were in the restaurant. After coming to Magmara, she sent a message about the current condition of the lava demons to her essence clone and asked it to inform Valter about it. At the same time, she also told her essence clone to ask Valter if there was anything interesting about the Magmara kingdom, as he was the one who created it. Just a few minutes ago, her essence clone sent back a message along with a location, saying Valter asked her to go to the location. According to Valter, it was a hidden place that he created long ago before he died. He said he created that secret place because there was a natural earth gnome fire there which was very suitable for blacksmithing. Yes, the blacksmith Anastasia told Evan about in the closed world of Drades was Valter, and the reason they couldn't meet him was because he was in the Shadow Realm. But according to him, at the hidden place he created, if nothing had gone wrong in the past thousands of years, his apprentice, whom he taught blacksmithing long ago, should still be living. Although the chances are slim since most of the lava demons are already gone, there is still a slight possibility that the lava demon whom he taught blacksmithing survived by staying in that place. Anastasia thought, and soon both of them left the Magmara kingdom. After leaving the Magmara kingdom, both of them flew towards a distant mountain range. After about 3 hours of flying, they landed near a mountain peak covered in wild vines and plants. It should be somewhere here, Anastasia muttered after landing and used her spiritual senses to scan the area, but as she expected, she didn't find anything using her spiritual senses. Well, it seems the level of the concealment formation that is hiding that place is not low, she thought and furrowed her eyebrows. If she had her full power, she was sure that she would have been able to find that place using her spiritual senses despite the concealment formation, but in her current condition, it was difficult for her to search for the hidden place. Suddenly, she noticed Evan was looking in a certain direction with furrowed eyebrows. "What's wrong?" she asked when she noticed his strange expression. "I don't know why, but the prismatic fire is getting restless as if something is attracting it in that direction," Evan said as he summoned the rainbow-colored fire in his hand, which was flickering non-stop. Anastasia raised an eyebrow when she saw this and suddenly, something clicked in her mind. Could it be because of the earth gnome fire? She thought, and after pondering for a while, she decided to move in the direction the prismatic fire was pointing. "Let's go and see what is there. Maybe we will find the place we are looking for by following the direction pointed by the prismatic fire." Hearing Anastasia, Evan nodded because he also wanted to see what was attracting the prismatic fire. Prismatic fire is far from reaching its full power. Maybe the thing that is attracting it can increase its power, Evan thought inwardly and increased his pace, quickly moving forward. Around 15 minutes later, Evan and Anastasia stopped in front of a mountain valley. "Whatever is attracting the prismatic fire is inside this valley," Evan said as he looked at the valley in front of him. Anastasia scanned the valley using her spiritual senses, and after ensuring there was no danger, both of them entered. The valley was surrounded by tall mountains and was covered in vines and moss, indicating that people didn't come here very often. After 10 minutes of walking, the prismatic fire glowing on Evan's hand suddenly moved towards the mountain wall. Anastasia raised an eyebrow when she saw this and looked at the mountain wall with a frown on her face, unable to find anything wrong with it. She looked at Evan and saw him nodding his head. Seeing him nod, she was sure that the prismatic fire was pointing towards the wall in front of her. After confirming this, she didn't waste any time and walked up to the wall, placing her hand on it. Taking a deep breath, Anastasia used the soul resonance skill for just a second. Suddenly, a terrifying aura that shook the entire mountain valley emanated from her body, and the wall in front of her instantly crumbled. The moment the wall crumbled, swish, 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 the sound of something tearing through the air rang out, and 3 sharp objects came towards Anastasia at lightning speed. When Anastasia noticed the sharp objects, her expression didn't change and she simply extended her hand forward. As she extended her hand, it transformed into a giant dragon claw covered in black scales and she caught the objects without any resistance. After catching the objects, she looked inside the cave that appeared after the wall crumbled and a surprised look crossed her face. "Looks like things are not as simple as they appear on the surface," she muttered in a low voice, her lips curving into an amused smile. "Looks like things are not as simple as they seem on the surface." Anastasia muttered with narrowed eyes as she looked at the 3 lava demons in front of her, aiming dangerous-looking crossbows at them. Evan was also surprised when he saw the 3 lava demons because, from what he had heard, he thought they had gone extinct. "Who are you?" one of the lava demons, who was at the peak of rank 2, asked in a cold voice, trying to maintain his composure while sneakily sending a message using his communication crystal. All 3 lava demons were 2 to 3 meters tall, their skin dark black with cracks running all over their bodies, and deep orange, lava-like blood could be seen flowing within their bodies through the cracks. Their heads were round in shape, with abnormally large red eyes and small round noses. It was the first time Evan had seen a lava demon, and just from looking at them, he could tell that all 3 lava demons in front of him were far more powerful than normal core evolvers. The peak rank 2 lava demon who had just spoken even gave him a slight sense of danger, which surprised him because he knew with his current power, if he tried his best, he could kill any rank 2 core evolver with just a single hit. "We are not here to fight. Call Sarath, and you will understand," Anastasia said in a calm voice as she changed her large claw back into a normal hand. The expressions of the 3 lava demons changed when they heard the name Sarath, and their eyes turned even colder. "How do you know that name?" "Magmorn," the peak rank 2 lava demon asked while aiming his crossbow at Anastasia and Evan. Anastasia frowned when she saw the lava demons aiming their crossbows at Evan and her. She didn't care too much about those crossbows since they couldn't hurt either of them. The power of the crossbow attack was comparable to the attack of a mid-level rank 2 core revolver, indicating the materials used in the creation of the crossbows and their bolts were not ordinary. We could forcefully enter, but it will complicate things later on, Anastasia thought, feeling a headache because she wasn't good at talking. Instead of talking, she preferred to use her fists, but if possible, she didn't want to fight against lava demons who were practically Valtair's people. Look, just go inside and tell Sarath that we want to deliver a message to him from Valtair. We have. Before Anastasia could finish her sentence, the 3 lava demons shot their bolts again and shouted in anger-filled voices. Do you think we are fools? His Majesty Valtair died thousands of years ago. If you are here to harm Master Sarath, then you will have to pass through us, Magmorn shouted with blazing eyes as the deep orange blood within his body started to flow faster. Anastasia simply waved her hand, and all 3 crossbow bolts that the lava demons shot were destroyed in an instant. These stupid brats. Black lines appeared on Anastasia's forehead, and for a moment, her eyes flashed with a deep black color. The moment her eyes flashed with deep black, the shadows of the 3 lava demons moved and black chains emerged from them, binding all 3. You, Magmorn shouted in an angry and panicked voice when he was bound by black chains and looked at Evan and Anastasia with hate-filled eyes. Anastasia ignored Magmorn and the 2 other lava demons and stepped inside the cave. Let's go inside. The longer we stay here, the higher the chances of this place getting exposed, she said, and both of them stepped inside. After entering, Anastasia looked at the cave entrance and covered it with black energy. Once the black energy covered the cave entrance, it disappeared from the outside, making it impossible for others to find. Just as Anastasia hid the entrance, she sensed something and looked deeper into the cave. So he finally decided to show up, she said with a smile on her face and waited along with Evan. Evan could feel an aura even stronger than Ashley's approaching them, indicating the person coming was definitely at least a rank 5 core revolver. The temperature of their surroundings suddenly started to increase, and soon they heard a heavy voice. Who are you and what do you want? As the voice fell, Evan and Anastasia saw a 3.5 meter tall lava demon walking towards them. The body of the lava demon was very muscular, and the deep orange blood that flowed within the cracks of his skin released a sense of oppression. Mid-level rank 5, huh? Anastasia said inwardly upon seeing the lava demon, and instead of answering his question, her appearance started to change and soon she returned to her original form. When the mid-level rank 5 lava demon saw Anastasia changing her appearance, he frowned, but soon his large red eyes widened in shock as he recognized her face. You, a brief look of panic crossed Sarath's face, and he took a step back. As someone who had been alive for more than 30,000 years, he knew Anastasia very well. You don't need to panic. We are not here with ill intentions, Anastasia said in a calm voice when she saw Sarath's panicked look. You know, that's a line that only a person with ill intentions would say, Evan said to Anastasia in a low voice. Hearing Evan, Anastasia looked at him with a dry expression. Evan quickly looked away when he saw Anastasia's irritated look and decided to keep his mouth shut. Hemp, she snorted when she saw Evan wasn't saying anything, and then turned back to Sarath, who had calmed down after his initial panic. Can we talk inside? She asked when she noticed Sarath had calmed down. Sarath looked at Anastasia for a while and finally nodded, gesturing for both of them to follow him. If it had been someone else, he would have already attacked, but he knew the woman in front of him was not someone he could mess with, so he hoped to settle everything without violence. Looks like he's not stupid, Anastasia thought and nodded her head when Sarath didn't act rashly. After freeing the 3 lava demons whom she bound earlier, she followed him deeper into the cave. As Evan and Anastasia followed Sarath deep into the cave, the temperature of their surroundings continued to increase. While walking, they were moving in a downward direction, indicating they were going underground. As they moved downward, the stones of the walls started to take on a deeper shade of black, looking as if someone had scorched them with fire. I am getting closer to the thing that is attracting the prismatic fire, Evan thought inwardly as he felt the restlessness of his fire. Anastasia also noticed the change in temperature, but her focus was on something entirely different. There are more than 100 lava demons living here, she thought inwardly without any expression on her face. Now that she was already inside the cave, the concealment formation that had been stopping her spiritual senses earlier couldn't stop them anymore, so it was very easy for her to see the situation inside the cave. The layout of the cave was like an underground base, with hundreds of rooms created by digging out the stones. Each room created in the underground base was made according to the needs of lava demons, and the temperature of the rooms was very high as lava demons liked to live in high-temperature areas. You brought some of the lava demons here when other demons tried to enslave you all after Valter's disappearance? Anastasia suddenly asked in a low voice as she followed Sarath. Sarath stopped walking when he heard Anastasia, but continued to move after a second and replied with a sigh. Yes, I was just a peak rank 4 core evolver at that time, so even if I wanted to, I couldn't stop the other demons who attacked Magmara. All I could do was bring some of the lava demons here to save ourselves. Anastasia nodded her head hearing Sarath since she thought the same. If possible, Sarath didn't want to let anyone know that lava demons were living here, but after seeing Anastasia, he knew it would be impossible for him to hide these things from her since she had already entered the cave hidden by the formation. Earlier, when she used the soul resonance skill for a split second, Sarath felt the terrifying aura she released, and he knew he wouldn't be able to do anything against her if she decided to kill all the lava demons here. Luckily, it doesn't look like she is here to fight, he thought while sighing in relief, and soon they reached a spacious open area deep underground. There wasn't a single soul in the open area, just some simple-looking iron chairs and strange materials scattered everywhere. Evan looked around and noticed there was a black iron door at the end of the open area, and the thing that was attracting his prismatic fire was behind that door. Although he was curious about what was attracting his fire, he didn't rush over since he also understood he first needed to get the permission of the lava demon in front of him to go there. I am curious about something, Anastasia suddenly asked Sarath. Now you are a mid-level rank 5 core evolver, and with your racial advantage, you should be able to face a peak rank 5 core evolver. So why are you still hiding here? I don't think in the Gehenna Empire there are many demons who can face you. Sarath nodded his head when he heard Anastasia and said with a sigh. You are right, but the current Gehenna Empire is very different from what it used to be thousands of years ago. Previously, there was no absolute ruler of the demons, but now that Baphomet has united all the demons, it is impossible for me to reclaim the Magmara kingdom that is under his control even with my strength. Reclaim the Magmara kingdom? Anastasia looked at Sarath with a weird look on her face. Why do you want to get back the Magmara kingdom? Can't you just become Baphomet's underling? I am sure he will gladly accept you under him and will even provide enough support for other lava demons to become strong. Sarath snorted when he heard Anastasia and said in a cold voice, who wants to become that bastard's underling? Huh. Evan and Anastasia were surprised when they saw Sarath's cold expression and immediately guessed something must have happened between the lava demons and Baphomet in the past. Seeing their surprised expressions, Sarath explained to them why he didn't like Baphomet, as it was not a secret. After Master's disappearance, although the situation of the lava demons started to change, it was still not to the point where we had to run away. But everything changed with the appearance of that bastard Baphomet. In his early years of rise, in order to unite all the demons, he needed many people who could work for him. And the lava demons, who were already struggling because of the attacks from other demons, were the perfect target for him. So he attacked the Magmara kingdom along with his other subordinates, and the lava demons, who were already struggling, could not handle the pressure anymore. In the end, to avoid becoming frontline slaves of that bastard, some of us escaped from Magmara and came here. Sarath sighed at this point and spoke in a bitter voice. Although we escaped, most of the lava demons living in Magmara were captured by them and were used in the frontline battle to unite the other demons. In the end, that bastard united all the demons and created the Gehenna Empire, but by then, most of the lava demons who were captured had died in battle. The remaining lava demons were all low level, and with the passage of time, they were not able to survive, leading people to believe that lava demons had gone extinct. Evan and Anastasia were quite shocked when they heard Sarath, as both of them didn't know anything about it. Evan had come to Utopia not long ago, while Anastasia was in the Shadow Realm, so this was really new information for them. I see, no wonder you don't want to leave here even with your current rank, Anastasia said with a look of understanding on her face. She glanced at Evan from the corner of her eye and noticed he was looking at her. Their eyes met for a brief second, and they immediately understood that both of them had the same idea after hearing Sarath's story. Anastasia cleared her throat to attract Sarath's attention, and after seeing he was looking at her, she spoke with a serious look on her face. "Actually, we were able to find this place because someone told us about it," she said, and took out an object from her storage ring. The moment Anastasia took out the object, Sarath's expression changed and his big red eyes widened in shock. Sarath was shocked when he saw the object Anastasia took out from her storage ring. Seeing Sarath's reaction, a hidden smile appeared on Anastasia's face. "Looks like it won't be difficult to convince him," she thought, and threw the object she had taken out towards him. Sarath caught the small iron token that Anastasia threw towards him with trembling hands and gulped down his saliva. Is it real?" He looked at the iron token for a while before shifting his gaze towards Anastasia. "What do you think?" Anastasia didn't answer Sarath's question directly but instead asked him with a smile on her face. Evan also looked at the iron token Sarath was holding, but he did not find anything special about it. To him, the iron token looked like a shabby piece of junk, so he couldn't understand why the rank 5 demon in front of him was so shocked. But, how is this possible? Master already died thousands of years ago. How can there be his aura on this iron token? Sarath was in complete shock and he muttered in a trembling voice. "Master's aura." Evan raised an eyebrow when he heard Sarath, and suddenly, something clicked in his mind. "Earlier, Anastasia told me we were going to meet the apprentice of the blacksmith she knew." He thought inwardly and glanced at the iron token. Could it be that this iron token belonged to that blacksmith? Evan was at least 90% sure that his guess was right. The reason he wasn't 100% sure was because of what Sarath had just said. His master died thousands of years ago. Anastasia had told him that Sarath's master was somewhere far away and they couldn't meet him for the time being. Although he didn't know where he was, from Anastasia's words, he could at least confirm that he was at least alive, so he had some doubts about whether the master Sarath was speaking of was the same one Anastasia had told him about. As he was thinking about all these things, Evan's eyes suddenly widened because he thought of another possibility. "Don't tell me." He looked at Anastasia and gulped down his saliva. "Don't tell me Azroth was the one who killed his master thousands of years ago, then turned him into a shadow undead, and now he is in the shadow realm." Anastasia had told him that there were many powerful individuals in the shadow realm, so he was now 100% sure that the reason Anastasia had said they couldn't meet Sarath's master for the time being was because he was in the shadow realm. She is not going to tell him that Azroth turned his honorable master into an undead, right? Evan thought inwardly while gulping down his saliva, hoping Anastasia wouldn't do something stupid as he did not want to be chased around by a mid-level rank 5 lava demon. Luckily, Anastasia had no intention of revealing Valter's condition for the time being and just gave Sarath a vague answer. "I can't tell you much because Valter himself asked me not to reveal anything about his situation for the time being. But I can assure you that he is still alive, and in fact, he was the one who told me about this place." Sarath was once again shocked when he heard Anastasia say that Valter was still alive. "Other than me, only Master knew about this place, so it also explains how they found this place," the lava demon thought while looking at the token. "Moreover, the aura on this token is not old. From its intensity, I can tell that this aura was infused in this token just a few hours ago, so the chances of Master still being alive are certainly very high." Seeing the thoughtful look on Sarath's face, Anastasia nodded her head inwardly as she knew the person in front of her was just a step away from taking her bait. The iron token she gave Sarath was actually something she had asked her essence clone to send to her. Valter was in the shadow realm, so she asked her essence clone to let him infuse some of his aura into the token and send it to her. The skill that she used to receive the token from her essence clone was somewhat similar to the combination of Evan's shadow storage and shadow clone. Just like how the shadow storage of Evan's clone is connected with his original self, the shadow of Anastasia's clone is also the same. Though, unlike Evan who doesn't need to use any energy to transfer things from the shadow storage of his clone to his own shadow storage, Anastasia has to use energy depending on the distance between her essence clone and her original self. And since her essence clone was in the primordial shadow realm, she had to use around 30% of her energy just to get this token. If, instead of this small token, she had asked for something big or a higher level item, she would have had to use even more energy. Although I didn't tell him the entire truth, it is not like I am deceiving Sarath. Once Master successfully integrates the Shadow Realm with his core, this poor guy will naturally be able to meet Valter, who will explain everything to him. Anastasia thought to herself and waited for Sarath to speak. After looking at the token in his hands and thinking about everything for a few minutes, Sarath finally raised his head and looked at Anastasia. There must be a reason Master sent you here, right? He asked with a serious look on his face. Hearing Sarath, Anastasia nodded her head and looked at Evan. Seeing Anastasia looking at him, Evan took out the golden scales of the mid-level rank 6 dragon and placed them in front of the lava demon. These are. Sarath raised an eyebrow when he saw the golden scales and immediately recognized they were not normal scales. He picked up one of the scales and his eyes widened in shock. Scales of a mid-level rank 6 dragon. He muttered in a low voice, looking at Evan with his eyes wide open, wondering how a mid-level rank 2 core evolver could have the scales of a rank 6 dragon. But when he remembered Evan came with Anastasia, he felt it wasn't surprising that he had the scales of a rank 6 dragon. After all, it wasn't difficult for Anastasia to take out the scales of a rank 6 dragon. He took a few deep breaths to calm down and asked after a moment. What do you want me to do with these scales? 3 hours later, do you think he will accept? Evan asked as he and Anastasia left the valley where the hidden cave was located. I am not sure, but we will find out in a few days when we come to pick up the armor. Anastasia said with a shake of her head, and both of them flew back towards the Magmara kingdom. After Evan and Anastasia left, Sarath looked at the golden dragon scales in front of him with a thoughtful expression. Earlier, when Evan took out the golden scales, he immediately recognized that they belonged to a light dragon and a mid-level rank 6 light dragon at that. The capital of the Gehenna Empire was destroyed by a mid-level rank 6 light dragon a few days ago, he thought to himself, a deep frown appearing on his face as he wondered if these scales and the dragon who destroyed the capital were somehow related. As he thought about the light dragon, he suddenly remembered another piece of news that was currently a hot topic among the top factions of Utopia. Many people are saying the Shadow Monarch is still alive and he killed many geniuses in the tomb of the ancient, he muttered in a low voice, his mind racing back to the person who had come with Anastasia. Anastasia was also using a fake appearance until she saw me, he muttered and gulped down his saliva. Could it be that the gentle-looking elf that came with her was the Shadow Monarch? Sarath's whole body shuddered when this thought came to mind, and for a moment, he even considered running away with the other lava demons. In Utopia, the reputation of the Shadow Monarch was quite bad, especially after the Eternal Night incident where he destroyed an entire kingdom. Sarath took a deep breath to calm down his heart, and after a minute, his blood pressure finally returned to normal. Even if he is really the Shadow Monarch, it's not like I can run away from here, he said with a sigh and rubbed his round face with both hands. If he were alone, it would have been a piece of cake for him to get away, but the problem was that he wasn't alone. Other than him, there were around 100 lava demons as well, and he wasn't sure he could bring them to another location without getting exposed. Sigh, let's just hope what they said about Master Valter is true and they won't do anything to us, Sarath said after a while and leaned back on the iron chair he was sitting on. As he leaned back, he remembered what Anastasia had told him after he agreed to create the armor for Evan. Her offer was quite good, but the problem is, I am not sure whether she was telling the truth or not, Sarath said while shaking his head and stood up from his chair. He picked up all the light dragon scales and started to walk towards the black iron door at the end of the open space. Let's hope they won't trouble me if I refuse their offer. As Sarath came near the black iron door, it opened on its own, and once he entered, it closed with a loud sound. After leaving the valley, Evan and Anastasia flew towards Magmara Kingdom and arrived there a few hours later. I need to go with Ashley to deal with some stuff that we will need to complete our plan, Anastasia said to Evan once they returned to the Magmara Kingdom. Alright, I will take a look around the Magmara Kingdom in the meantime, Evan nodded when he heard Anastasia. Anastasia didn't say anything upon hearing Evan and disappeared from there. Once Anastasia left, Evan looked around for a bit and started to walk in a random direction. Let's see if we can find something interesting, right Elora? He asked in a low voice. Yes, let's find interesting food. Well, I wasn't talking about food, but anyway. Evan shook his head with a wry smile on his face when he heard Elora and soon disappeared into the crowd. A few hours later, Evan was walking in a market area of Magmar Kingdom while holding 2 meat skewers in his hands. He put one of the meat skewers in his mouth but didn't bite it. A second later, a black golden light flashed around one of the pieces of meat on the skewer, and it disappeared. Once the piece of meat was gone, Evan took a bite of the other piece and continued to walk with a look of interest on his face. "This place is really bustling because of that thing, huh?" he commented lightly as he saw that, in addition to demons, there were beastkins, mechadroids, vampires, and other species of utopia roaming the market street. "I wonder what kind of commotion it would cause when they realize the thing all of them came here for is actually a bait," Evan mused with a smile on his face and happily toured around the market while talking with Elora. About half an hour later, he passed by a street stall but suddenly stopped and looked at the small stall with narrowed eyes. He walked towards the stall and saw that the owner was a low-level B-rank demon. The items he was selling were either low-level pills, some herbs, or materials for crafting, all scattered on a small wooden platform in front of him. Evan bent down in front of the stall and looked at all the items the demon was selling. The B-rank demon just glanced at Evan and didn't care too much about him. From the clothes Evan was wearing, the demon could tell that Evan was rich, and in his opinion, rich people like him wouldn't buy the low-level items he was selling. "Another rich bastard who came here to waste my time," the demon thought and yawned loudly, seemingly thinking about taking a nap. Evan didn't care about the demon, who was definitely not a good salesman, and his eyes stopped on a small black piece of metal that was in the shape of a U. Evan didn't know why, but when he passed by the stall, he felt something attracting him, and after seeing the strange piece of metal, the feeling of attraction intensified even more. "What is this thing?" he thought inwardly and picked up the metal from the stall. After picking up the metal, Evan tried to look at its information, but closing parenthesis question mark. He just saw some question marks on his status window. Just when Evan was frowning because of seeing the worshipper of the question mark cult again, the question mark that appeared on his status window started to fade, and new information appeared there. A shard of realm glyphs. This is... Evan was stunned when he saw the details of the item in front of him, but he quickly recomposed himself and calmly asked the demon in front of him, "Do you know what this is?" Hearing Evan, the B-rank demon looked at him with a bored expression and shook his head. "I found it on the outskirts of Magmar Kingdom. It looked like high-quality material, so I brought it with me. As I thought, unlike me, who can see it's a shard of realm glyph, this guy can't see its details." Evan thought inwardly as he heard the demon and looked at the small shard for a while. "How much is it?" The demon was surprised when he heard Evan, as he couldn't believe he wanted to buy this seemingly useless-looking thing. But he didn't question why Evan wanted to purchase it and immediately stated its price. 100 low-level essence stones. Hearing the demon, Evan took out a mid-level essence stone from his storage ring and threw it towards him. After giving the essence stone, he stood up and left with the realm shard. While walking away, Evan's mind drifted back to his time in Aurora World when he had defeated Baphomet's essence clone in the dungeon. "After killing that essence clone, I received a shard of realm glyph as a reward for clearing the dungeon." Evan thought to himself, remembering what Anastasia had told him about the Monarch physique holders a few days ago. The Monarch core will create a realm of its own after reaching C rank. He muttered in a low voice, wondering if the shard of realm in his hand was somehow related to the realm created by the Monarch core. If so, then, the realm shard in my hands must be related to the realm that Baphomet's Monarch core created. After all, this is the Gehenna Empire, and I don't think I would find a shard of the realm created by another Monarch's core here, Evan thought and sighed inwardly. Just what is the use of this realm shard? He wanted to ask Anastasia about it, but remembering she had gone with Ashley to prepare for their upcoming plan, he decided to put this matter to the back of his mind for the time being. Since he decided to ask Anastasia about the realm shard, he did not absorb it like last time and tried to put it inside his storage ring, but to his surprise, he found he couldn't place it inside his storage ring. Evan was surprised when he couldn't put the realm shard into his storage ring and tried to place it into his shadow storage, finally succeeding in storing it. There is definitely something special about this realm shard since I can't put it inside my storage ring, Evan thought after putting away the shard and continued to tour around the Magmar Kingdom alone with Elora, who would occasionally ask him to buy something to eat whenever she saw a new dish. She is really a glutton. Evan thought with a smile on his face as he purchased some roasted demonic goat chops from a street stall. Although the name of the dish was something that could easily kill anyone's appetite, while touring around, he heard it was one of the most famous dishes of the Magmara kingdom. The meat of the demonic goat they used was from a special breed of monsters that could only be found near the mountain range located on the outskirts of Magmara kingdom. A place filled with demonic miasma where people below rank 1 can't enter easily. Evan thought about the place where the demonic goats lived, and a look of interest flashed on his face as he thought about something. According to what he had heard, the mountain range where the demonic goats lived was filled with miasma that was harmful to all beings. Even demons below rank 1 couldn't enter deep within the mountain range because, despite their resistance to miasma, they would be overwhelmed by it, and their bodies would start to rot because of it. Bodies starting to rot because of miasma. Evan suddenly stopped walking and looked at the light purple-colored roasted goat chop in his hand with a weird expression. Since these demonic goats live near the mountain range filled with miasma, does it mean their bodies are also rotten and I am currently about to eat rotten grilled meat? Evan thought, and suddenly, his appetite for tasting the famous demonic goat died down. How's the taste, Elora? Evan first asked Elora, who had just eaten her lamb chop. It's good, very tasty. Is that so? Evan looked at the purple-colored goat chop for a while, but in the end, he decided to let Elora eat it since he didn't feel like eating it. Well, it's not like I was super curious about its taste. Evan said to himself and started to walk away from the stall selling roasted demonic goat. As he walked away, a small black golden light flashed around the goat chop he was holding, and it disappeared without leaving any trace. After leaving the stall that was selling demonic goat, Evan didn't tour around the Magmara kingdom anymore. Instead, he left the kingdom and flew towards the distant mountain range. Father, where are we going? Elora asked in a disappointed voice when Evan left Magmara kingdom as she had been having a great time eating new dishes one after another. Evan's mouth couldn't help but twitch when he heard Elora's disappointed voice. She has been eating one dish after another for nearly 5 hours. He thought to himself, is there a black hole or something inside her small stomach? For a moment, he even considered what would have happened if he wasn't a rich person who had plundered the wealth of many people in the tomb of the ancient. Sooner or later, I would have definitely gone bankrupt if I hadn't plundered their fortune. Evan thought and then comforted Elora. Don't worry, little glutton. We are going to a place where you will be able to eat good food, he said, his eyes shining for a moment. And I might also be able to reach the peak of rank 2 if nothing goes wrong. Around 10,000 kilometers away from Magmara Kingdom, a large mountain range known as the Black Mountain Range was located. This range was called the Black Mountain Range because it was shrouded in thick black demonic miasma 24/7. At the entrance of the Black Mountain, 5 elves were camping, roasting a demonic goat to make their lunch. Among the 5 elves, the strongest was at the peak of rank 3, while the other 4 were either rank 1 or rank 2. Commander, do you think we will be able to find the culprit? I mean, I don't think the Blood Moon auction house will willingly give us information about the person who provided them life water. They have the backing of the Blood Moon Empire, so we can't even use force to obtain information, a mid-level rank 2 elf with light green hair asked with a frown. The peak rank 3 elf, whom the mid-level rank 2 elf addressed as commander, remained silent upon hearing him. What do you mean they won't give us information about the person who provided them with life water for this auction? Life water is a precious resource of the elves, and only the Tree of Life can produce it, a peak rank 1 elf who was roasting the demonic goat said with a sneer. It's obvious that the person who provided the life water for this auction somehow stole it. Even the Blood Moon auction house won't try to protect a thief, right? I don't know if they will try to protect him or not, but normally, big auction houses like the Blood Moon auction house wouldn't give the information of their clients to others because it would damage their reputation, the peak rank 2 elf said with a shake of his head and sighed. Who cares about their damn reputation? According to the information they released, they are going to auction off around half a liter of life water. The Tree of Life produces only a liter of life water every year, and someone somehow got half a liter, the peak rank 1 core evolver who spoke earlier said coldly. It must be the work of someone from inside, so we have to find out the information about the person who provided the life water if we don't want this to happen again in the future. I don't think it's the work of someone from the inside. The people who can approach the Tree of Life are all high officials, and I don't think they would be daring enough to sell the life water to someone else. Another elf who was at the peak of rank 2 spoke when he heard the peak rank 1 elf. You don't. That's enough. The peak rank 1 elf was about to say something but was stopped by their commander, Laval, who was at the peak of rank 3. Our main task is to retrieve the life water. Getting information about the person who provided it for auction is secondary. If we get the information, that's good, but if not, then there is no need to worry about it. We just need to bring back the life water, and the high officials will take care of the rest. Hearing Laval, all the elves turned silent and didn't dare to say anything. Laval looked at the 4 elves and sighed inwardly. Honestly, similar to the peak rank 1 elf, he also thought that the person who provided the life water for auction was someone from the inside. Even if it's true and it is the work of someone from the inside, it's not like people like us can do anything about it. Laval thought and shook his head. He knew very well that he and his companions were just a low-level task force, and if they tried to interfere in the work of powerful individuals, they would just invite trouble for themselves. After seeing the crowd that came to the Magmara Kingdom for this auction, Laval already knew that it would be nearly impossible for them to get their hands on the life water. Even though they brought a large sum of essence stones, many high-level people came to buy the life water, so he didn't have much hope of getting it. The only reason he even decided to go to the auction was to show that they tried to get the life water but failed because other people bid a higher amount than them. I hope at the end of everything, we will be able to go back to Elvensheen in one piece. Laval thought, looking at the black mountain range behind him. As he gazed at the mountain range, he suddenly felt something and turned his head to look ahead. The other 4 elves also sensed something and turned their heads. Upon turning, they saw someone flying towards them at rapid speed. Mid-level rank 2. Feeling the aura of the person flying towards them, Laval relaxed because a mid-level rank 2 person was no threat to his team. A few seconds later, a gentle-looking elf with shoulder-length black hair tied in a ponytail landed some distance away from them. Laval and the others were surprised to see that the person was actually an elf, but they didn't care much about it. It was quite common to see elves in the Gehenna Empire as many came to visit. Evan also noticed Laval and the others while he was in the air and, like them, he also didn't care about their presence. He was here to try something in the Black Mountain range shrouded in black demonic miasma, so after landing, he ignored the 5 elves and walked towards the entrance of the Black Mountain range. HMPH, why is this guy acting all haughty? Since we are from the same empire, he should have at least greeted us, the peak rank 1 elf who was roasting the goat said in a dissatisfied voice when Evan didn't even glance at them after landing. The other 4 elves ignored the rank 1 elf's grumbling and waited for the goat to cook. Just when the demonic goat was about to be cooked and the peak rank 1 elf couldn't stop drooling, a black golden light flashed around the goat, and it disappeared without leaving any traces. What? Laval and the others were stunned when their demonic goat suddenly disappeared, and all 5 of them stood up. The peak rank 1 elf, who had been almost drooling, quickly came back to his senses and his eyes immediately went towards Evan, who had suddenly increased his moving speed. Hey you, stop right there. Hey you, stop right there. Damn, this glutton. Evan sighed inwardly and turned around to look at the 5 elves who were staring at him with narrowed eyes. What? He asked in a calm voice, pretending to be innocent and unaware of what had just happened. The peak rank 1 elf, who was roasting the demonic goat, was angry when he saw Evan's calm expression. Do you think we are fools? Don't think we didn't sense the energy waves that you released when our goat disappeared, he shouted in a cold voice. Evan knew it was impossible to hide the fact that the disappearance of the goat was somehow related to him, but he didn't fluster and replied in the same tone of voice. Look, I know it might sound like an excuse, but it was really an accident. How about this? I'll just capture another demonic goat for you guys. The elves were surprised when Evan admitted that the disappearance of their demonic goat was related to him, as they expected him to deny it. Although Evan admitted that he was behind the disappearance of their demonic goat and was even willing to capture a new one for them, the peak rank 1 core evolver wasn't satisfied. Do you think we can't capture the demonic goat ourselves? He asked with a sneer on his face. Evan frowned when he heard the peak rank 1 elf because he felt this guy was acting too cocky for his own good. If you don't want another demonic goat, then what else do you want me to do? The peak rank 1 elf smiled when he heard Evan and looked at his storage ring. Since we all are elves, I don't want to embarrass you. How about this? Just give us the price of the demonic goat that you stole, and you can leave from here. Evan ignored the greedy eyes of the elf who was blatantly staring at his storage ring and asked in a calm voice, how much do you want? Nothing much, just give us 100,000 mid-level essence stones and you can leave. Hearing the peak rank 1 elf, the other 4 elves frowned because it was embarrassing even for them to ask for 100,000 essence stones just for a demonic goat. The goat that Elora had just eaten would cost no more than 5,000 low-level essence stones in the market, so hearing their teammate asking for 100,000 mid-level essence stones simply turned them into petty thieves. Although the 4 elves despised the attitude of the peak rank 1 elf, they didn't say anything because he was the one who caught the goat and did all the work to roast it. Hey, hearing the elf wanted 100,000 mid-level essence stones, an amused smile appeared on Evan's face. Honestly speaking, 100,000 mid-level essence stones were nothing to him, considering he had plundered the wealth of thousands of people in the Tomb of the Ancient. If the elf had asked him politely, he might have even given him 1 million essence stones without thinking, but the way the elf was asking and acting was just triggering Evan the wrong way. I see, 100,000 mid-level essence stones, huh? Evan said with a smile on his face, but for some reason, that smile sent a chill down the spines of all 5 elves, and they all subconsciously took a step back. Seeing the fearful look of the elves, Evan sneered and turned around to leave without saying anything. He was willing to capture another demonic goat for them since it was essentially his fault that their food disappeared, but after seeing their attitude, he didn't feel like wasting his time with them. You, stop right there. Seeing Evan leaving, all 5 elves who had felt scared came back to their senses, and the peak rank 1 elf shouted in an anger-filled voice. However, Evan completely ignored his shout and continued to walk towards the entrance of the Black Mountain Range. You bastard! Seeing Evan ignoring him, the eyes of the peak rank 1 elf blazed with anger. With lightning speed, he took out a black dagger from his sleeve and threw it towards Evan, who had his back to them. The dagger was just 15 centimeters in size, but it was releasing an ominous aura as if it was coated in a very powerful poison. Evan was less than 100 meters away from the elf, so the dagger reached his position in an instant. Seeing the dagger was about to hit Evan, the peak rank 1 elf smiled. Even the other 4 elves shook their heads as all of them knew how dangerous the dagger the peak rank 1 elf threw was. Even though it was just a beginner level rank 2 weapon, the paralysis poison it was coated with was enough to disable even a peak rank 2 core revolver. Just when the elves were thinking Evan was done for, boom, an overwhelming pressure of gravity descended in the area. Crack. The dagger, which was just mere centimeters away from reaching Evan, was immediately crushed to the ground under the pressure of gravity and cracks started to appear all over it. Other than the peak rank 3 core revolver, who could relatively easily withstand the gravity pressure, the other 4 elves were immediately pressed to the ground and their bones started making chattering sounds as if they would snap at any moment. Evan slowly turned around and looked at the horrified faces of the 4 elves and the cautious look on Lavel's face. I really did not want to fight since I just came out of a shithole a few days ago where I had to constantly fight against one monster after another, but you. Evan said as his face turned completely indifferent. Quote, since you want to act like a piece of sh*t, I wouldn't mind cleaning you all up. As Evan finished speaking, the gravity pressure in the area increased even more, and the ground started to sink. The 4 elves, who were pressed to the ground, started to cough up blood and their faces turned deathly pale. Lavel was able to handle the gravity pressure without much problem, but looking at his teammates, he knew if he didn't stop Evan, they wouldn't be able to last long under such powerful gravity pressure. Evan was also wary of Lavel. Without using his authorities, it was still difficult for him to face a peak rank 3 core revolver, but he wasn't worried because, for Lavel, he had something special in his mind. This guy is perfect to test out one of the abilities that my daughter gave me. Evan thought inwardly and his black eyes flashed with a hint of golden light. The moment Evan's eyes flashed with golden light, the atmosphere of the surroundings changed, and Lavel, who was thinking about stopping Evan, felt a fear like never before engulf his body and soul. What is this? Lavel dropped to his knees while staring at Evan with his eyes wide open in horror. The 4 elves who were pressed to the ground because of the gravity pressure were also trembling, their eyes filled with endless fear. In front of them, Evan stood with an indifferent look on his face, his eyes flashing with a hint of golden light, and the area behind him had turned completely black. In the endless darkness behind him, a blurry silhouette of a person sitting on a throne with heterochromia eyes, one red and one golden, could be seen. Evan was currently using his skill, Fear, but compared to before when there was nothing in the darkness other than the blurry silhouette, now a jet-black halberd glowing with golden light was hovering right beside the man on the throne. The halberd of destruction was a soul weapon, so one of its abilities was to affect the spiritual skills used by its wielder. Fear was a skill that usually instilled a sense of dread within its target, but now, because of the effect of the halberd of destruction, not only was the sense of dread that it instilled in its target increased, but this skill could also directly destroy the soul of the target as long as the target's spiritual power was lower than Evan's spiritual power. Laval's spiritual power was higher than Evan's, so it was impossible for him to directly destroy his soul using the Fear skill, but it didn't mean he couldn't damage his soul. As Evan used the Fear skill and Laval stared at the endless darkness that appeared behind Evan, the sense of dread he was feeling continued to increase, and because of the effect of the halberd of destruction, his soul was getting injured with each passing second. Evan didn't target the 4 elves who were pressed to the ground using the Fear skill because he was sure that if he targeted them just as he was doing with Laval, their souls would be destroyed in just a few seconds. Although Evan didn't target them, it didn't mean the Fear skill didn't affect them. The dreadful spiritual aura that engulfed the surroundings after Evan used the Fear skill still made the 4 elves so terrified that 2 rank 1 elves lost consciousness in just a few seconds, while the rank 2 elves were trembling in fear, not daring to look at Evan. Around 30 seconds later, Evan stopped using the Fear skill, and the dreadful aura that engulfed the surroundings disappeared. Laval was already on his knees, but when Evan stopped using the Fear skill, he couldn't take it anymore and dropped face first to the ground while panting heavily. His face was pale white from fear, and his aura was in complete disarray, indicating his soul was damaged. I used around 70% of my spiritual power in these 30 seconds. Evan thought inwardly, but he was very satisfied with the result. Normally, in order to take down a peak rank 3 core revolver, he would have to fight a tough battle or use his authorities. Now that he took care of a peak rank 3 core revolver just by using 70% of his spiritual power, he was very satisfied with it. And this is just one of the abilities of the halberd of destruction. Evan muttered in a low voice, thinking about the information he received when Elora woke up a few days ago. When he received information about how the halberd of destruction he was carrying was a replica created by one of the abilities of the halberd, he also received information about the skills that he could use while wielding the halberd. And among them, the ability that he used to strengthen his spiritual skill was just one of the common skills. With my current power, I can barely use 1 or 2 skills of the halberd. If I try to use more, the destructive force of the halberd will definitely harm my body and soul. Evan said to himself and walked towards the 5 elves who had collapsed to the ground. Should I kill them? He thought while rubbing his chin, but he felt killing them would only invite trouble for him. I am sure they came here because of the life water. If I kill them now, the elves will immediately be notified that something happened to them, and it might invite some unexpected trouble. If it were a normal time, he wouldn't even bat an eye before killing these guys, but now that they were very close to executing their plan in the Magmara Kingdom, he didn't want to do anything that might affect it. He doesn't want to kill them, but at the same time, he can't let them go either. Although I have changed my appearance, I still can't let them go since they will definitely report what happened here to their higher-ups, and I don't want any unwanted problems, Evan said inwardly with a pondering look on his face. Suddenly, an idea came to his mind. Right, I can do that, he said, and a cold smile appeared on his face. By doing this, I can even use these guys to create more trouble for the Gehenna Empire. Evan used the second effect of the growth linked skill and took one of Gabu's skills, Mind Intrusion. Mind Intrusion. Using this skill, you can delve into the minds of others, extracting memories or implanting false thoughts. The skill won't work if the target is 2 levels above you. Mind Intrusion was a skill he had used long ago in Aurora World to control one of the people of the Dark Guild for his own use. I think it was in Chap 506. He had implanted false thoughts into that guy's mind, turning him into his servant, and now he was planning to do the same for the elves. Normally, it would have been very difficult for him to affect Laval since he was a peak rank 3 core revolver, but currently, his soul was badly damaged, so it wasn't difficult for him to affect his mind. Moreover, Mind intrusion is a skill that depends on the level of spiritual power since it affects a person's mind. Evan's own spiritual power was already slightly higher than that of a normal mid-level rank 3 core evolver, so even the restriction of the skill that he couldn't use it against someone who is more than 2 levels higher than him was useless since Laval's spiritual power was at the peak of rank 3, just 1 level above him. Laval and the 2 rank 2 elves were already out of strength because of the effect of the fear skill, while the 2 rank 1 core evolvers were unconscious, so it was very easy for him to use the mind intrusion skill on them. In just 5 minutes, he implanted false thoughts into their minds. After implanting the false thoughts, he summoned Elysia and asked her to heal them a bit. Under Elysia's healing, other than Laval, whose soul was damaged, the other 4 elves returned to normal in just a few minutes. Once they were healed, all 5 of them kneeled in front of him without saying anything. "Go back to the Magmara kingdom for now," Evan said to Laval and the others with a smile on his face. "I will contact you guys in a few days." Hearing Evan, Laval and the others didn't say anything and immediately left the Black Mountain Range, heading back to the Magmara kingdom. After sending away Laval and the others, Evan smiled slightly and turned around to look at the entrance of the Black Mountain Range. With the help of these 5 elves, the chaos that we are going to cause will be even bigger. He thought to himself and walked towards the mountain range shrouded in black miasma. As he approached the entrance of the Black Mountains, a sudden thought came to his mind. Now that I think about it carefully, doesn't it feel like me, Anastasia, Alaric, Sylvan, and Ashley are the members of a hidden villain organization who came here to throw the world into chaos? Evan muttered in a low voice and realized they fulfilled most of the conditions for being members of a hidden villain organization. They came from a hidden world that no one was aware of. They were using skills to control people's minds and using those controlled people to scheme against even more people to cause trouble for the world. So we are similar to the final bosses who are out to destroy this world, huh? Evan thought and felt he was being influenced by Azeroth, who most of the time thought about destroying the world in different ways. Nah, I am just overthinking. There is no way I am like that guy. I am the true embodiment of peace, Evan said to himself and stopped thinking about these things. Soon, he stopped in front of the entrance of the Black Mountain Range, and even though it was thin at the entrance, he could still see the churning sea of black miasma. Now let's see if I can reach the peak of rank 2 here or not. He muttered and entered the Black Mountain Range. 20 minutes later, Evan had walked a few kilometers deep within the Black Mountain Range. The ground around him was rocky, and his surroundings were filled with black miasma. If he were a normal rank 2 core evolver, the miasma around him would have definitely limited his vision to just a few hundred meters, but because of his high spiritual power and his excellent vision, he could easily perceive everything within a few kilometers around him. This should be a good place. After walking for 5 more minutes, he suddenly stopped and looked at the black miasma around him that had become thicker than before. He took a deep breath and stretched out the palm of his right hand. "Energy devouring," he said, and green vines, filled with sharp thorns, came out of his palm and pierced the ground and rocky surface of the mountain around him. After piercing the mountain surface and the ground around him, the green vines started to glow and a suction force emanated from them, rapidly absorbing the demonic miasma from the surroundings. Once the vines absorbed the miasma, they started to convert it into energy and sent it towards his core. Evan used the energy devouring skill for around 5 minutes, and after 5 minutes, he shook his head and stopped using the skill. "It's the same, huh?" he muttered in a low voice and sighed. When Evan was in Aurora World, the energy devouring skill was one of the most important skills to him because he needed a very large amount of energy to advance in ranks. Without the energy devouring skill, it would have taken him a long time to reach S rank since he had to improve the rank of 2 cores when he was in Aurora World. But thanks to energy devouring, he was able to shorten the time needed to advance as he didn't need to absorb cores to increase the rank of his core. But after coming to Utopia, the energy devouring skill became quite useless to him. The reason for this was the world essence and the conceptual energy. The level of world essence and conceptual energy was very high, making it difficult for the energy devouring skill to absorb them in a short time. After trying the skill, he found that absorbing a beginner level rank 1 monster would take him around 3 days, and if that monster started to convert its world essence into conceptual energy, this time would increase even more. Waiting for 3 days just to absorb a beginner level rank 1 monster was simply impossible for Evan, so he didn't try to use this skill to increase the rank of his core. He also tried to use it on a rank 2 monster, and the result made him completely speechless because he realized absorbing the body of a beginner level rank 2 monster using energy devouring would take him at least 3 months or more. Instead of wasting a few months absorbing energy from the body of a rank 2 monster, Evan felt cultivating in essence mines was way more useful, so he never used energy devouring to increase the rank of his core. But when he heard about the Black Mountain Range earlier, he felt he might be able to absorb this demonic miasma using the energy devouring skill. After all, he knew his race, Eltern, was deeply related to demons. But unfortunately, similar to what happened with monsters, although energy devouring could absorb the miasma and turn it into energy to increase the rank of his core, the process was very slow. I had expected that it might not work since this demonic miasma is also somewhat similar to the conceptual energy in a way, but still. Evan said and shook his head. It looks like I will have to use the second method, he muttered as his shadow started to shake, and some shadow undeads like Eclipse, Volak, Kazel, and a few others who were good at stealth came out of his shadow storage. You know what to do, right? He asked his shadow undeads, who nodded their heads and immediately scattered in different directions of the Black Mountain Range. I didn't want to do this, but well, Evan muttered, and his lips arched upwards in an amused smile. It looks like the people of Magmara Kingdom will soon face a shortage of demonic goats for a. Inside the Star City, within the main auction house of the Blood Moon Auction House. A 210 centimeters tall man, wearing a red suit with a royal purple outline, was walking with a cold look on his face. The man had short black hair, red eyes, and pale white skin, as if he had no blood in his body and was suffering from anemia. In front of him, a woman was walking, leading him deep inside the Blood Moon Auction House. Although the woman's face was calm, her hands were trembling from time to time, indicating she was not as composed as she appeared. After a minute, the woman brought the man in front of a room and opened its door for him while bowing respectfully. The man didn't even glance at her and entered the room with the same cold expression on his face. Once he entered, the woman closed the door and sighed in relief while wiping the invisible sweat from her forehead. Damn, so that's the kind of pressure that rank 6 core evolvers naturally release. The woman thought and silently left. Inside the room, when the door opened and the man entered, Leopold, who was already inside, stood up and bowed respectfully. Thanks for coming, Duke Anderson, he said in a calm voice. Anderson Bloodworth, one of the dukes of the Blood Moon Empire, nodded his head at Leopold and sat down on the couch opposite him. Once Anderson sat down, Leopold walked towards him and poured a blood-red liquid into a wine glass for him. After pouring the liquid, he went back and sat down on the couch opposite Anderson. For the first few seconds, neither of them spoke anything. After about 10 seconds, Anderson lifted the glass of red liquid from the table in front of him and asked after taking a sip. So, did you get the thing I asked you? In Chap 887 I briefly mentioned the meeting between Leopold and Anderson. His voice was cold and indifferent, as if he didn't care too much about the question, but the shaking of the red liquid within the glass he was holding said otherwise. I have, Duke, but there is a small problem. Leopold nodded his head upon hearing Anderson. Anderson showed a delighted expression when he heard the first half of the sentence, but a frown appeared on his cold face when he heard the second half. What kind of problem? It's not a big deal, Leopold said with a shake of his head when he saw the frown on Anderson's face. It's just that we will have to go to the Magmara Kingdom to get that thing. Magmara Kingdom? Anderson raised an eyebrow when he heard Leopold. Yes, our branch of Blood Moon Auction in the Magmara Kingdom received around half a liter of life water from someone for auction just a few days ago. If you want to get the life water, you will have to go to the Magmara Kingdom and participate in the auction. Anderson frowned when he heard Leopold and tapped his finger on the side of the sofa. After a minute, he asked in a calm voice, have you verified the authenticity of the life water? You don't have to worry about it being fake. We have already verified it, and it is indeed real life water. Anderson made a thoughtful expression and asked after a moment, do you think I can directly buy the life water? I can pay its owner more than he could earn from auctioning it. Leopold smiled apologetically when he heard Anderson and shook his head. Forgive me, Duke, but we can't do that. The person who provided the life water for auction has actually spread the news about it among all the factions. If we suddenly cancel the auction of the life water, it will severely affect us. It was actually a complete lie. The news about the life water was spread by the people of the Blood Moon auction house since it was one of the commands that he received from Anastasia. Anderson's expression changed when he heard the news that the life water had already spread among other factions, and he asked in a serious voice, "What's the current situation in Magmara Kingdom?" Leopold smiled warily when he heard Anderson and replied in a low voice. "From the manager of the auction house in the Magmara Kingdom, I heard new people from other factions are arriving there every day, and most of them are there for the life water. Are there any strong competitors out there?" Anderson asked as the frown on his face deepened. Leopold nodded his head when he heard Anderson and said in a serious voice, "There are indeed many powerful people who are coming for the life water, but if I have to say the strongest person who might compete for the life water against you, then I would say it should be Halphus." Halphus, the mid-level ranked 6 demon. Halphus. Anderson's eyes narrowed when he heard Leopold. He wants the life water because of Rom, the beginner-level ranked 6 demon who got injured by the light dragon, right? Yes, Leopold nodded when he heard Anderson. The current Gehenna Empire is very unstable because of their situation with the Dragon Islands and Baphomet's disappearance. Rom is one of their strongest demons, so it is natural that they will try to get the life water at all costs so that they can heal him and stabilize the condition of their empire a bit. A cold light flashed in Anderson's eyes when he heard Leopold. When Leopold told him about the auction earlier, he had thought about sending one of his subordinates to get the life water, but after hearing that Halphus would also be there, he changed his mind because he was afraid that even if his subordinate successfully bought the life water, there might be a chance that Halphus would use force to get his hands on it. "I can't lose this chance since there are not many items that contain bountiful life force like life water," Anderson thought as the image of his dead son appeared in his mind. "When is the auction?" he asked Leopold in a cold voice. Hearing Anderson, a hidden smile appeared on Leopold's face. 10 days. The life water will be auctioned off after 10 days.